today we will focus on few of the important aspects of stats. When we talk about stats, it's a very big domain, but inside that there are few topics which are very important for data science, data analyst perspective. Plus, whenever you're going for an interviews in this specific domain, so chances are very high that you will get the questions from these topics. So we will touch upon the topics of descriptive stats, probability, and inferential stats, in which we will be having the topics like hypothesis testing. And at the very end, we will touch upon with respect to correlation and regression. So this is the overall objective of today's class. I will try my level best to touch upon all of these topics, but obviously considering the time duration which we have, uh, going in a lot more depth might not be feasible. But whatever is important and you should know, I will definitely talk about that stuff. And afterwards, if you feel that there are some topics which you might not be aware of, so again, you can refer at any point of time the resources on YouTube. Again, a freely available playlist of mine is also available on my channel. You can refer that as well. But let me first of all share with you my own thoughts with respect to what are the important points which we should focus on when we're discussing about stats. Because I have seen as a beginner, lot many people have this confusion, and usually they deep dive into stats, considering that we should know this as well, that as well, and whatever be the important stuffs which they should know, they are not even aware about that. So when we talk about data science, data analytics, there are very few topics in which we should gain expertise, not deep diving into each and every portion of stats. Because I hope you all know that with respect to the stats, people are pursuing masters and PhD. So we are not the people who wants to pursue masters or PhD in a statistical part. We are someone who wants to become data scientist, who wants to become data analyst. And what we want at the end of the day, that whatever is the important maths, whatever is the important stats required for that specific stuff, that someone should tell me. I hope that's the objective for everyone, right? Is there anyone who wants to pursue PhD in mathematics? Although it's a very good domain, at least if you want to become a researcher in future. So in that case, it's a very big and good domain, I would suggest. Is my voice is breaking? I'm using a very good mic. It should not break. I'm using a different mic for my voice per se, and for hearing you all, I have the headphone as well. Voice is clear? Perfect, perfect. It should be clear. Okay, let me just now share my screen, and just let me know whether my screen is properly visible to everyone or not. Visible, right? Perfect. So let's go step by step on all the topics. So first of all, we will deep dive into the very first topic of stats, which is about descriptive stats. Before we will talk about descriptive stats, anyone who can just let me know, what do you understand with statistics? If someone will say this word of statistics, what is your understanding for the same? What do you understand with this keyword of statistics? Anyone, any answer? I really want this session to be interactive. So please make sure that you will keep on responding me in the chat window. So Praveen is saying numerical data, Rohit is saying insights, someone is saying mathematical facts, uh, then analysis of data, getting meaningful insights from data, analyzing and summarizing the data, measurement. We can extract the desired result with the help of PF stats from data. So I really find one definition quite insightful. Although if we try to merge all of these words, whatever you guys have told me, I think that will become the awesome definition of statistics. But you will find very common words on various websites, and that word I think already mentioned by Nandini, analyzing and summarizing the data. So whenever we are hearing this specific term of statistics, specifically in this specific domain of data. So the interpretation is that this specific domain or this specific concept we are using to analyze and summarize the data. So at the end of the day, what I want is I want to analyze the data and I want to summarize the data in a insightful manner so that at the end of the day, the upper team or the clients will be able to take the decisions which will be helpful to grow the overall revenue of the company. I hope it makes sense. So that is the literal meaning of what we called as statistics. Okay? Where we are doing the analysis, we are trying to summarize the huge amount of data in a small fashion so that if, let's say, someone will see the numbers, someone will see the plots, they will be easily able to understand the overall data that we will be having. Now, in statistics, we have two types, or I would say there are two components of statistics. What are those two components? Anyone? Any guesses? What are those two components of stats? So stats is usually divided into two parts, I would say. Very good. So everyone knows that the two components are, one is the descriptive stats, one is the descriptive statistics, and another one is the inferential statistics. Inferential statistics. Now, first of all, we have to understand that, what is the difference between these two components of stats? By the name itself, if you will try to get the intuition behind the meaning of this specific word, descriptive, it's an English word. What do you think is the meaning of descriptive? Just don't take it as a mathematical term. If I will say it's an English term, can you tell me what is the meaning of descriptive in an English layman term? Elaborate, right? Describe something. Very good. I think it's absolutely correct. Descriptive means that I just want a description of data points that I will be having, right? I hope everyone will understand the specific part. It's a very simple definition. So at any point of time, if I want to describe my data, if I want to summarize my data, I will have to use the concept of descriptive stats. For example, if, let's say, I will provide you a data set, and in that specific data I'm saying that, can you tell me what is the mean of, or what we called as average of a given data points? Average of a given data points. What is the median or the mode of a given data points? I will go with the descriptive stats. If someone is saying that, can you tell me how much is the standard deviation or the variance of a given data? Again, descriptive stats plays a very significant role in that as well, right? So whenever I want to summarize my data, maybe I just want to see how many missing values or how many null values are available in my data. Null values count. So all of these comes under the description of a given data, and that is where we will always go with the descriptive stats. Tell me that whether it is clear or not. Then we will talk about inferential stats later on. Is that clear? Clear, right? Perfect. So I will just give you a simple example of this descriptive stats. For example, let's say we will be having a data points. A data is given to you because we are talking about maths, so obviously numericals should come into picture. to get the better clarity of the concept, let's say I will be providing you a data. So given data is, let's assume we will be having maybe 2, 4, 6, 2, 8, 15, 18, 2, 5, and 2. Let's assume this is the data that is given to you, right? Now, if I will ask you that, can you provide me a descriptive stats for this specific data, in which what is the mean? So how will you evaluate? How will you evaluate? Mean is nothing but is the average. So I hope everyone knows how can we evaluate the average of any given data. So anyone who can just let me know, how can we evaluate? So here if you can see how many number of items we will be having, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? I think 10 elements we will be having. So what you will do, you will just try to do the summation of all these elements, whatever we have, 8 plus 15 plus 18 plus 2 plus 5 plus 2 divided by 10. So this specific outcome, whatever we will be able to get, is the mean. You can evaluate. Durgesh is saying that it's 6.3. So I'm writing whatever he's mentioning, but you can verify the calculation later on. Is this 6.3 only? Or 6.4? 6.4, right? Because I have done before this session the calculation as well. Still, you can verify. It's simple thing, right? Then when we talk about median, how many of you knows how can we evaluate median? What is the interpretation behind the median? Median internally means the middle value. The middle value, right? So when we talk about median, first of all, usually what people do is that they directly take the middle value in the given data and give me the answer as a beginner. So this is the biggest mistake which you're supposed to do. I think there are few people who in this class has also said this point, right? Directly we can fetch the middle value. No. First of all, we need to sort the data. So always remember, whenever you are trying to evaluate the median, we have to first of all sort the given data. Sort means that you have to arrange the given data in the ascending order. So what you can do is, what values you will be able to get is, I think 2 is repeating 4 times. So 2, 2, 2, 2. After that, I think next value is 4, then 5, then 6, then I think 8 is there. Then I think 15 is there, and then I think 18 is there. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Now, in this specific 10 values, you have to fetch the middle values. Now, number of elements are 10. So it's an even number. Now, in the even number, how can you get the middle value? So what you can do is you can leave 4 values from the start and 4 values from the back. And you can take the 2 middle values and then take the average of that. Because it's very difficult for us when we are working with the even number to pick a single value. It will always be the 2 values, right? If the number of elements are odd, then directly we can pick up a single value because we can leave exactly same number of elements from the left and from the right, right? But when the number of elements are even, in that case, we will left with 2 elements. So what we can do, we can take the average over here, which will become 4 plus 5 divided by 2. 9 by 2 is 4.5. So this will become the median. Is this clear to everyone? Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? Give me the confirmation. Right? The last thing is the mode. which is basically helping us to summarize our data in a clear-cut manner. What is the meaning of mode? Mode means you have to find the highest frequent element, the element whose frequency is very, very high. So in the given range of the elements, can you just let me know which specific element is the most occurring element, most frequent element in this given range? It is 2, right? Because 2 is appearing 4 number of times. 2 is appearing 4 number of times. So here the output will be equals to 2. I hope everyone will agree on this specific note. Yes or no? Right? Now, when we talk about descriptive stats, chances are very high that interviewer, or when you're working in the companies as well, that you will be able to get a point where they will talk about something called as outliers. How many of you know the concept of outliers? I am repeating median again. Median is just the middle value. How will you get the middle value? First of all, first step is to sort the data. What is the meaning of sort? Majorly, you have to arrange the data from lowest number to highest number in an ascending fashion. So if you will be able to observe, I have already sorted the given data. I have already sorted the given data. Once you sort the data, now you have to find the middle values. Middle means in between. So you have to skip the exact equal number of elements from left and right. Then only you will be able to get the middle value. Now the problem is, in this specific case, the number of elements are even, right? We have 10 number of elements, means these are the even number of elements that we will be having. So what will happen in this specific case? You will take the two elements, because when you leave 4 from the left, 4 from the right, you will be left with two elements. So how will you get the median? Then you have to take the average to get that value. So the average of 4 and 5 is 4.5. Is this clear to everyone? Before we will move ahead, till so far, is everything is clear? Can I get the confirmation from everyone? We will move to the outliers. Wait for a moment. We are not moving to outliers as of now. I am just getting a confirmation. Till so far, is this clear? Any doubts before we will proceed ahead? Because I don't want that uh, the quality will be compromised in terms of doing the more stuff. Then that's not of any use, right? I don't want to waste your time also and my time also. All are okay till so far? Shall we proceed ahead to the next topic in that case? Give me the confirmation. Shall we proceed ahead? Perfect. Now let's move to the outliers. Now this is one of the very interesting topic with respect to, I would say, interviews also. So listen it very carefully. And with respect to, I would say, companies work as well. Because this kind of problem I usually face on a daily basis. So I'm talking with respect to the work, which you will also do at your end, right? So what is the meaning of outlier? First of all, let's try to understand. Then I will talk about the problem or the interview question which you might get when we're talking about this descriptive stats, okay? As many people have already said, that outliers are the extreme values, which is absolutely correct definition. Outliers are the extreme values. Now, these extreme values can be you can say very low value also, or it can be a very high value as well. So both of them are the extreme ends, right? We can have a very low value also, and we can have a very high value as well. Now, might be many people have not understood from this point. So I will give you a very simple real-time example. Let's say you are working in a Bangalore company and you are doing a survey in a Bangalore that the people who are working as a data analyst position as a as a fresher as a fresher, how much are they earning? And you went to the technical park at Bangalore, where many companies are there, and you just try to ask from the freshers that, hey, how much is your salary, or how much is your CTC, or how much per month you are earning after tax deduction, how much is your in hand income? Okay, let's assume that after doing a survey on a monthly basis, you got some data, and you definitely checking with each and every company. So few of them are working in the startup, whereas there are people who are working in MNCs, there are people who are working in tier 1 companies, there are people who are working in tier 2 companies. When I'm saying tier 1 company, maybe you can consider uh, US based companies, or Google, or Amazon, or Microsoft, like that. And then when I'm saying tier 3 companies, maybe you can consider the startups which are just started their journey, right? So you are trying to see the salaries of all of those people who are working in different tier companies. Now you got an idea that there are freshers who are earning, let's say, 50,000 per month. After tax deduction, they are earning 50,000 per month, right? Then there are people who are earning 80,000 as well. There are people who are earning 70,000 as well. There are people who are having a salary of 1 lakh after tax deduction as a fresher again. There are people then who are earning 20,000 only. And then there are people who are earning, let's say, I'm just writing one random number over here. He said that I'm earning 15 lakh per month. I'm not sure whether this number exists or not. Okay? But let's assume that you got these specific numbers, right? Now, if you will consider these specific numbers, if I'll ask you, let's say in this specific case, maybe there is a person who is earning 2,000 as well. Now, if I'll ask you that in this specific part, in this specific survey, what are the extreme values? What are the extreme ends? So you will say very frequently that, hey, getting 2,000 per month is also, that too in Bangalore, which is a very expensive city, is quite shocking for me. And then getting that 15 lakh salary per month is also shocking, considering the other people ranges where they lie from 50,000 to 1 lakh, right? So this is something which is a extreme low value, and this is something which is a extreme high value. And that is the main reason, that is the main reason why we are considering them as an outlier. I hope everyone get my point now. What is the meaning of outlier? Is this clear to everyone? What is the meaning of outlier? Now, when you work in the companies, almost in every raw data which you get from the clients, right? There are multiple outliers available in our data. There are multiple outliers available in our data, in almost all data points. And whenever you are working as a data analyst or as a data scientist, your initial task is to detect the outliers and to handle them. Now, when you get that outliers, obviously one way could be that you can say that I will completely remove these numbers and then do the analysis. But removal might be a lose or losage of information, right? Removal might be a lose or losage of information. So in that case, maybe you are saying that what I will do is I will not completely remove this data, but what I will do is I will do the imputation of this given data, because I know these values are somewhere wrong. Maybe I will try to replace these values with a correct value. Now, how can do the replacement? And that is where, if I will say you that whether you will pick mean or median for the imputation per se, which specific metrics you should go. When you're working with the numeric data, you will either use mean or median. Now, this is where the interview question lies. always and always remember that median is more robust measure for outliers. So if, let's say, outliers are available in your data, and you know that outliers are available, by the way, there are multiple techniques to detect the outliers at your home whenever time permits to you. You can refer my videos on my channel as well. But I am sharing with you, to detect the outliers, we have a very famous plot, and I really want everyone after this session will get over to spend some time, called as box plot, which basically helps us in terms of doing a visualization that how many number of outliers are available and exactly what are the points where the outliers are available. So with the help of box plot, or we do have volume plot, but in the companies people usually prefer to use box plot. So this is a very famous plot specially designed to detect the outliers. Now with the help of these outliers, if you know that okay, outliers are available and you are doing a descriptive stats, so what I'm saying is that median will be able to give you the correct answer of that summary of that summarization of a given data as comparable to mean. Why I am saying so? Why I am saying so? Because if, let's say, you are trying to find the average of the people earning as a fresher for the position of data analyst, if I will say that, can you give me the mean of this? Can you give me the mean of this? And then if I say, can you give me the median for the same? Can anyone give me the approximate answer for the same? So how many number of elements we have? One, two, three, four, five, six. Again, we have even number of elements. So can you just let me know what is the average? What is the mean of these values that we will be having? Approximate value will work. So someone is saying median is 85,000. Anyone who can just let me know the mean as well? Mean will be very high. Any approximate number still can I get? Just try to do 50,000 plus 80,000, 80, plus 70,000, 70, plus 1 lakh, plus 2,000 plus 15, 15 lakh. So approximately, you guys are saying that it is coming out to be approximately, obviously we are not going towards the exact values as well, 3 lakh. So I am writing this number. Now you only tell me, after observing this specific part, which number is the accurate number. In India, which specific number, given this data, is the accurate number. You can clearly observe over here that outliers are available. Now considering that outliers are available in the data, if you are providing the information to the client, should you provide the information of mean value or median value? Which is the appropriate information over here? Median. Can I say, everyone? This is the more appropriate information available with us. Will you guys agree with me? And that is the main reason, if someone will ask you that which specific metric, because this is one of the very widely asked question in an interview, that out of mean or median, which specific metric is the I would say is the metric which is more robust to outliers. So your answer should always be median. After this session, your answer should always be median, and you can provide the appropriate reason as well by giving this kind of a illustration. Shall we move ahead now to the next discussion? Now after this, in the descriptive stats, we have the another measures as well. For example, range. Range is nothing but what is the highest value you have in a given data minus what is the lowest value that we will be having in a given data. This is the meaning of a range. Similarly, we have something called as IQR. Uh, Again, I won't be able to discuss all the specific metrics. I will give you as a task. This is a task for you all. Just refer any of the resources, whatever you feel is good for you, and try to get the information. What is the meaning of IQR? It's just a difference between the 75 percentile minus 25 percentile, Q3 minus Q1. After this, a very important matrix is something that we have is standard deviation. It's another important portion in the descriptive stats. And the intuition behind the standard deviation is, or I would say variance is, it provides the measure of dispersion. Actually, all of these are the components in a stats to give us the spread of a given data. Dispersion means in a given data, how much is the spread with respect to a given average mean, how much is the spread of a given data. So we will try to evaluate the standard deviation by doing a square root of summation of whatever be the value of xi minus x bar whole square divided by the value of capital N, where I is equals to 1 to capital N, where N indicates that how much is the how many data points that we will be having. So if you will be able to observe what we are doing over here, we are trying to take individual entities that we will be having, and we are trying to subtract that with the mean value of a given data values, right? So if someone will ask you what is the meaning of standard deviation, it's a way to check that how much is the spread of our data with respect to the mean. For example, a very simple example, let's assume that you have been given a age data. Age of people, let's say the age is 70, 60, 65, 55, 40, 25, 29. And if I'll ask you, what is the standard deviation of the specific uh, age data that we will be having? So first of all, you will try to evaluate what is this average of this age. So how will you evaluate that? You will say 70 plus 60 plus 65 plus 55 plus 40 plus 25 plus 29 divided by, so how many values we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyone who can give me the approximate answer for the same? We will come to that point, Nandini. Please wait for a while. We have just started. And definitely, again, we have a very limited time. So stats is again a very big portion. I will definitely try my level best to cover up as much as I can. But after this, you have to do your own self-study as well. I will share you a few of the resources from where you can refer and do your own self-study as well later on. So approximately people are saying the answer is 49. So in order to evaluate this standard deviation, what we will do is we will say xi means initially 70 minus 49 whole square plus 60 minus 49 whole square plus 65 minus 49 whole square. Plus, I hope you get my point that we are picking up individual data, doing a subtraction with respect to the mean value that we will be having. 25 minus 49 whole square plus 29 minus 49 whole square divided by how many values we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 divided by 7. And then whatever value we are getting, we will take the square root of the same. So this is how basically we will be able to see that how much is the spread of a given data. So someone is saying that the answer is 16.52. I'm not sure, but I'm writing it over here if it is correct. I hope it is clear till so far. Any doubt till so far, anyone? So all of these are the ways to check the spread of a given data, whether it's a range, whether it's a IQR, whether it's a standard deviation or a variance. So these are the metrics that we will be having to determine the descriptive stats. Descriptive stats. Above are the measures of central tendency, meaning middle values. Here we will be able to find out. And below are the range, IQR. All these are the, I would say, in stats, measures of dispersion, which in literal term we called as a spread, of a given data. Is this clear till so far? Any doubt anyone is having? Otherwise, we can move to the next topic over here, inferential stats. What actually you want me to repeat? You have to tell me, because we have covered up multiple points over here from the last 1 hour. Okay, so I will just give you a brief context of what I have explained, and after that we can move ahead. So, a brief summary is that till so far we have covered up about what is stats. We have seen that it's a way to analyze and summarize the data in a clear manner. We have seen that there are two ways to define that specific thing, summarization part. One is called as descriptive stats, another one is called as inferential stats. In descriptive stats, we are trying to find the description of a given data. Now, when we're talking about description, we have different measures for the same. First measure is a measure of central tendency, meaning that how can we able to find out the middle value of any given data. Maybe we can apply mean, we can apply median, we can apply mode. So we have figured it out that how can we, able to get the mean, which is the average value, how we will be able to get the middle value or the median, first of all via sorting the data in the ascending order and then getting the middle value. And at the very end, we have seen how we will be able to find out the mode by getting the highest frequent value. Very simple. After that, we have seen that how we will be able to find the spread of a given data. So any given data with respect to the average value, with respect to the mean value, how much is the spread of a given data? For that, we have multiple ways. We have talked about range, which is the difference between the highest and the lowest value. We have talked about standard deviation, which is the difference between the average with a given value. And I have showcased with the help of one example of age, in which we have seen that how it will be able to find the first of all average value, and then take the individual numbers of age, find the difference with respect to the average and do the squaring of that, and then taking the average overall divided by 7. So that is what we have covered up. IQR is another way of measuring the dispersion, which I have given you as a task. To deep dive into it, I will at the end of the class showcase you that where you can find this specific content to study. But till so far, whatever points I'm covering up over here in this specific class, consider them as a most important points with respect to the interview perspective. And at least all these points you should know pretty well when we're talking about statistical part. Is this clear? Whatever topics I have not covered up till so far, you have to wait for a while. I'll cover up. Don't worry. If you will allow me to move further, then only I will be able to cover up. So, whatever question I'm asking, whatever points we have covered up, just give me the confirmation. Is that clear? So that I'll cover up the upcoming topics which you are asking from me. Everyone. Because there are many things which I want to cover up. So, if you will move ahead, then only I can move ahead. Right? Perfect. Now, the next important part that we will be having is the inferential stats, as we have covered up. Now, before jumping towards the inferential stats, I want to talk about a simple term which we called as population and then sample. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about the difference between these two. but I will give you a brief context about this specific part. Whenever we are working with a huge amount of data, so in the data analyst domain or in the data science domain, it's very difficult to analyze the huge population. So population means a very bigger set of a data, a huge amount of data set, maybe in the form of TBs. You have a huge amount of data. A data can be, let's say, the people who are working in a Bangalore. Now you can consider that Bangalore is a hub in India in which almost everyone is working in the office, right? So that is a kind of a huge population that we will be having. What is the meaning of a sample? If I'll take the small subset of that population, if I'll say that it's quite difficult for me to deal with a huge amount of data, so what I will do is I will take the subset, which I'm calling as a sample. So sample is nothing but a subset of the huge population that I will be having. Is this clear? So when we talk about sample, sample is a small subset of a huge population. So usually people try to do the experiments or the statistical analysis or the statistical analysis on these sample data. Why is that so? Because obviously it is very difficult to load the huge amount of data because of GP lesser GPU resources availability, lesser GPU resources availability. Also, we want that in our experiment there should be a lesser cost, right? We don't want to apply the more cost. We always want that within lesser cost we will be able to do the experiment. So considering all those aspects, usually the researchers, usually the developers who are working in the data science domain, data analyst domain, they always work with the sample data. And whatever be the analysis, whatever be the results which they make, they apply the same results in the complete population data. I hope I'm making sense to everyone. Is this clear what I'm trying to convey over here? So they will they will do the experiments, they will do the analysis on the sample data, the subset that we will be having, and whatever be the conclusion they are making, they will say that the same conclusion is equally valuable, equally valid for the complete population that we will be having. Does this point make sense to everyone? Does this point make sense to everyone? So in the companies, if the population is very huge, chances are very high that the people are working on a sample data. They won't work with the complete population altogether. This is the smartest way to work in the project, right? If let's suppose you are saying that I have a smaller population itself, data is not that much huge, then the good idea will be that you will directly work with the complete population itself. But if let's say you are working with a finance domain where the data is very huge, if you're working with a, let's say, academia domain, the college data, the edtech specific company based data, where the learners enrollments are quite huge, then again the better idea could be to work with the sample data. But if let's say you're working in a healthcare domain where data is not that much huge, so in that specific case you can directly work with the population itself. I hope it makes sense to everyone, right? Now, in the inferential stats, we usually try to see that whatever be the results we're getting for a sample data, whatever be the conclusions we are getting for a sample data, how much is the validity? that it is correct for the population data as well? How we can say how much confident we are that it is actually right for a huge population as well? And that is where the concept of hypothesis testing comes into picture. That is where the concept of hypothesis testing comes into picture. So, what is hypothesis testing? Shall we dive into it? Is the brief objective of this discussion is clear to everyone? A very important topic again for the interview perspectives. What is the use of inferential stats when we have descriptive stats? I think in the illustration itself, I have given you a very huge difference between inferential versus descriptive stats. Again, I am repeating that point for those people who are asking this question. I think if this point is clear, what I'm explaining over here, then this question doesn't make sense. If you're asking this question, means the point is not clear. So I'm again repeating my point. Inferential. If you heard this word appropriately, inferential comes from inference. Inferential comes from inference. What is the meaning of inference? Any guesses? What is the meaning of inference? Prediction. Can we say? Inference means prediction. So what we are predicting over here? What we are predicting in over here? Few minutes back, I told you a story. So can you just let me know for those people who got my point? What we are predicting over here? The results of the entire population data based on the values, based on the conclusion which we got in a sample data. So what we are doing over here, as I told you, that due to a huge amount of data, we cannot process that specific huge amount of data in our system. If we process that, it requires a huge cost, it requires expensive GPUs. So what we usually do, we work with the sample data, and when you work with the sample data, you try to apply the statistical analysis, or you will do the experiments on the sample data. After that experiments, you will make few conclusions why we are doing this study. You will get some result, you will get some conclusion. Now you have to infer, you have to predict, you have to work on a point where you will say that whether these conclusions are equally valuable for the entire population or not. Whether these results are valuable for the entire population or not. That is the biggest question. And that is where the inferential statistics plays an important role. That is where we are doing a lot of testing. For example, a very famous testing which I told you, hypothesis testing. Hypothesis meaning, internally meaning is assumption. So in this testing, we will make some assumptions and then we will work on it to verify that whether the assumptions are correct or not. Whereas descriptive stats is a complete different story. In descriptive stats, we are working with mean, median, mode. We are trying to find out the range, IQR, standard deviation. Basically, whatever data is given to us, we're trying to work on that specific data. We're not inferring anything. In this specific inferential stats, we're working with the population and sample. Are you getting my point? Where we're trying to infer, we're trying to predict that whatever conclusion we are making on a small set of data, sample data, is that specific results are equally valuable for the huge population or not. And for that, we have different concepts to verify that. I'm not covering up all those concepts, but there is a very important concept called as hypothesis testing, which I'm covering up in today's session. Again, with respect to whatever discussion we are doing today, if you want to deep dive into it and you want to understand from me itself the concepts altogether, as I told you, I have a complete playlist available on my platform, on my YouTube platform. You can just search Priya Bharti and you will get the entire playlist altogether. So whatever concept you feel that here I'm lagging and I really need a guidance on this specific part from Priya itself, you can always refer that. But for now, it's a live class. Try to understand whatever points I'm delivering over here, right? Take this as an opportunity to work around with respect to the important topics. Everything I cannot cover up because we have a limitation over time. I hope it is clear to everyone. Shall we move ahead now? So far, so good. Exactly. You can say like that, right? Perfect. So now, hypothesis testing, we will try to understand with the help of the example. Because if I'll just try to give you a theoretical part, you won't be able to get the understanding for sure. So for that, how the hypothesis testing will be done, I will try to take one example. And for that, let me just pick that example from the web. Uh, so I am copying one problem, and with the help of that, I will try to explain you the concept. I hope the problem statement is clearly visible to everyone. So these are the kind of questions which you will face when you're working uh, in the companies or when you're giving the interviews. For example, here they are saying a company claims that the average weight of its product is less than 500 gram. So there is a company, XYZ company. That company used to sell the products, and now the company is claiming that their average weight of its product is less than 500 gram. A sample of 25 products has an average weight of 480 gram. So they have picked randomly 25 products. So it's a sample, right? We are not working on a entire population, entire products that we will be having in the company. So they have just picked up 25 products out of the available products that we will be having. And what they have observed is that the average weight of those 25 products is 480 grams with a standard deviation of 20 gram. Now, you need to test that whether this claim is correct at a 5% significance level. First of all, this significance level, which is represented by alpha, which is 5%, is the percentage of error, which we can, I would say, which our internal system is saying that we can examine, we can accept that if you will be having a 5% of error, it's completely fine, but not beyond that in your result, which is what we called in the statistical term called as significance level. Now, usually these kind of questions are being given to you, and you have to apply the hypothesis testing to check whether the claim is correct or not, whether the company's claim is correct or not. These kind of questions will be given to you. Now, to solve these kind of questions, you should know there are two components of testing. One is called as null hypothesis. Another one is called as alternate hypothesis. alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis is represented by H0 and alternate represented by H1. Now, whatever be the claim is given to you, whatever be the claim is given to you that the average weight of its product is less than 500 gram, this usually comes under alternate hypothesis, where they are saying that the average value, which is the value of mu, should be less than 500. And null hypothesis says the vice versa thing, that mu should be more than or equal to 500. So what we have done is, whatever we the one we want to claim, we are trying to I would say distribute that into two components. One is null, one is alternate. Whatever be the claim they are saying, that will come under alternate hypothesis, and the opposite or vice versa claim will come under null hypothesis. Now, at the end of the day, in your conclusion or in your result or in your case study, in your conclusion, you will always try to focus on null hypothesis. So either you will reject the null hypothesis, or you will fail to reject the null hypothesis. This is how usually all the case studies will be done, where either you will simply reject this specific null hypothesis, where we will say that the average is more than equal to 500, or you won't be able to reject it. There are two conclusions which you will make. Now, in order to do that, we try to apply one specific formula, and the formula is where we try to evaluate the z value, which is equals to x bar minus mu divided by sigma upon square root of n. What is x bar? What is x bar? The average weight which is given to us, which is 480. X bar is average weight, which is 480. What is the value of mu which they are claiming? It is 500. What is the value of standard deviation? By the way, standard deviation is represented by sigma. What is the value of standard deviation given to us? It's 20 divided by small n indicates the sample size. How much is the sample size? It is 25. If you will try to solve this, you will get approximately answer as -5. Now, once you got this specific answer, you will try to see that at 5% significance level, what is the value of z, which is what we called as critical value. And this value you usually able to get from the table available on the web. So online, you will be able to access the z table, where you will be able to see the critical value as per the given significance value. So if I'll just showcase you, uh, z value as per 5% significance level. So you can see it is 1.645. And this is the table that we will be having, which I am saying. So you can see the table is available with us. And here, as per the value given to us as 5%, and what is the value of z? 0.05. It's not a complete table. Yes. So this is the critical region. Minus 1.645 is the value. So this value you will be able to get from the internet. So at 5% significance level, what is the value of Z you will be able to get from the web? Now, always remember, you have to compare the calculated value, which we got just now as minus 5, with the critical value, which we will get from the web, from the internet, which is minus 1.645. And you have to compare which value is bigger. Tell me, out of these two values, which value is bigger? Minus 5 is bigger, minus 1.645 is bigger. Critical value is bigger, right? Now, always remember, out of these two given values, if the critical value is bigger, it means that it supports the null hypothesis. So we fail to reject the null hypothesis. If the critical value is smaller at any point of time, in that case, we will reject the null hypothesis. So this is the critical value. This critical value usually supports the result of null hypothesis. So if critical value is bigger than the calculated value, so we will fail to reject that claim. Otherwise, vice versa, we will reject the null hypothesis. So this is how basically the entire flow of hypothesis testing will be done. And at the end of the day, we will make the conclusion that whether, for example, in this case, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. And if it is vice versa, where calculated value is bigger, then we will say that we will reject the null hypothesis. So this is the entire idea to verify the claim that whether the average is more than equal to 500 or it is less than 500. So in this specific case, shall we say that we fail to reject the null hypothesis means the average is more than equal to 500, everyone? So whatever be the claim mentioned by the company that the average weight is less than 500 gram, is that claim is correct or incorrect as per our testing? Is that claim that the average weight is less than 500, is that correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. That's the whole idea which I really want to convey over here. Here we have applied z-test. Always remember, whenever sigma value, standard deviation, is given to you, whenever the standard deviation is available, we apply z-test. And whenever the value of sigma is not available, we apply t-test. Again, I'm again repeating my point. All these discussions requires a lot of time, lot of discussion. But over here, obviously, I am somehow lesser crunch of time. That's the main reason I'm sharing you bit of stuffs, but I will share with you the detailing part at the end. Please do refer those specific things, those documentations, in order to get the appropriate idea. Some people are saying that the value of n is less than 30. It's what is the value of n? It's 25. So yeah, it is less than 30. So you can apply t-test. So in that t-test, if you will be able to observe, almost the answer will remain the same because it will be s divided by square root of n, but s is also not given to us. So I think in this case, z is the only thing which we can apply over here. Also, this specific number, this n bigger than 30 or less than 30, is a hyperparameter. What is the meaning of hyperparameter? That it is not something which is fixed. It really depends on the population size. If the population size is very small, in that case, 25 is also considered as a good number to go with a z-test. But if the population size is very big, that is where 30 number comes into picture. I'm not sure whether you got this specific detail as well or not, but that's the whole idea. Shall we move further? Yes? Okay, perfect. Now, this is the overall thing that we have covered up. So, I just have given you a gist of inferential statistics as well. After this, the next important discussion which I really want to make. So, I hope the topics are clear, whatever the topics you have to focus on over here. Now, the next important thing which I really want you guys to focus on is the, I think, probability which we're supposed to discuss. Now, probability is again, it's not a portion inside statistics, I would say. It's a portion inside linear algebra, discrete mathematics. But it plays a very, very important role when we are working in the data science or data analytics specific domain. I hope everyone knows that how can we evaluate basic probability. I'll talk about normal distribution. Please wait for a while. We are moving step by step. We'll cover up all those topics. Don't worry. So anyone who can just let me know what, like, how will you evaluate any probability? What is the definition of a probability? Anyone? For example, let's try to understand again with the help of one example. I'm tossing a coin three times. Three times I'm tossing a coin. If I'll ask you what is the probability of getting at least one head, then how will you evaluate that? That's my question. How will you evaluate that? So someone has mentioned the appropriate answer. It's nothing but how many number of times. So the general definition or general way to evaluate a probability is how many favorable outcome you got divided by the total number of outcome. This is the simplest way to get the understanding of a probability. For example, in this specific question, if I will say, what are the possible outcomes that we will be having when we toss a coin three times? So, anyone who can give me the answer? Four times head, four times tail. Then two times head, two times tail. Then one time head, one time tail. One time head, one time tail. Head, tail, head, tail. I think we will be able to get all the possible outcomes over here. Can I say? How many number of outcomes are possible? It will be 2 की power 3, which is equals to 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, when I'm saying at least one head, what is the meaning of that? कम से कम एक head होना चाहिए. So in this specific case, how many number of favorable outcomes you have? 7. Can I say? This is, we have at least one head. This is, we have at least one head. This is again at least one head, at least one head, at least one head, at least one head. So we have 7 favorable outcomes out of total 8 possible outcomes. That is the probability that we will be able to get. So the answer will be 7 by 8, which is quite appropriate. Will you guys agree with me? Everyone agrees with me on this specific part? This is the basic I would say, way to evaluate the probabilities of any given event, of any given experiment given to you. Now, we do have different kinds of probability distributions. In mathematics, we have different kinds of probability distributions. Most commonly, you will find two broader categories of probability distributions. Any guesses? What are those two? Any guesses? What are those two probability distributions? Very good. One you will find that one is called as discrete, another one is what we call as continuous. What is the meaning of discrete? What is the meaning of discrete? Exactly. Whenever you are getting as an outcome a whole number in a as a result, whenever you are getting as an outcome as a result a whole number, that is where you will call it as a discrete probability distribution. I hope it is clear to everyone. So when you are getting a whole number, it's a discrete probability distribution. For example, let's say you are working on a problem, and in that specific problem, either the answer will be true, so either the result will be true, or it will be false. So anyone who knows that which kind of distribution it is. For example, we are working on a problem where I'm saying that whether the rain will happen or not, whether the students will join my class or not, whether the students will stay in my class till the very end or not. So in this all these cases, either the answer will be true or the answer will be false, right? In all these illustrations, I have only two answers. Either the answer will be true or the answer will be false. It will be a binary answer, 0 or 1. So under which specific distribution it comes under? Many people are saying binomial. Is that correct? Many people are saying binomial. Is that correct? Very good. So Shubham said the correct answer. It's a Bernoulli distribution. Always remember, when you have the outcome as either true or false or 0 or 1, the kind of distribution that we have is Bernoulli distribution. If you have multiple classes, for example, uh, you are your output will be 0, 1, 2, 3. There are three classes, four classes that we will be having. So either the result will be 0 or the result will be 1 or 2 or 3. So you will be having these kind of result where we will be having multi-class problem. That is where a binomial distribution will come into picture. That is the main difference between Bernoulli versus binomial. Binomial actually comes from Bernoulli itself. Then we have a continuous base distribution. What is the meaning of continuous distribution? By the name itself, I think you can guess continuous numbers. So we will be able to get any decimal number as an output, right? Any floating number as an output. So in this specific case, the output should be a continuous number, right? For example, a very famous distribution that we will be having is the normal distribution. And this is the, I would say, heartbeat of statistics, without which we cannot over stats, right? Because in a real time, almost all the distributions that we will be having, ideally they fall under the specific category of normal distribution. How it looks like? let me explain you a bit more detail about this distribution because it's very important. So it's kind of a bell-shaped curve, and this is how this distribution will look like. Oops. Maybe you can refer any uh, picture from the web, but I can showcase you over here. This is a kind of a bell-shaped curve which we have in the normal distribution. And this is the middle value which we call as mean. Always remember, in this specific distribution, in this normal distribution, our data looks like this. So when you plot any specific data which falls under normal distribution, this is how the plot will look like. Where the middle value, which is mean, is equal to median is equal to mode. You will observe that in this specific distribution, in this specific normal distribution, the three values, the three metrics that we will be having, mean, median, and mode, all are equivalent to each other. All are equivalent to each other. Always remember that. Now, this specific distribution is also called as Gaussian distribution. I remember I was taking one interview, and I asked the question to the candidate that, can you tell me the difference between Gaussian versus normal distribution? And he starts explaining me the difference, because people usually feel that these two are different words, these two are different distributions altogether. These two are different words, but internally they both represent the same distribution, kind of synonyms of each other. Also, this distribution is also called as symmetric distribution. Symmetric distribution. Why is that so? Because in this specific distribution, in this specific curve, it ensures us, it makes sure that data will be divided 50%. 50%. On the left side, you have exactly half of the data, and on the right side, you have exactly half of the data. That is why it is called as symmetric distribution as well. So whenever someone is talking about normal distribution, symmetric distribution, Gaussian distribution, all those things are one and the same. I hope now onwards, from this session onwards, if someone will ask you this question, you will not get confused and clearly able to give the answer. Am I saying it correctly? Then we also have, I would say, unsymmetric or skewed distributions as well. Right? For example, uh, again, we have two components here. Either we have left skewed or right skewed. If, let's say, you have this kind of curve where on the left side tail is there and then you have this kind of data, or when you have right side tail, so that is where you will call it as left skewed distribution, and this is what we called as right skewed distribution. Now, whenever you will be having skewness in your data, it indicates that in your data, outliers are available. That is why you have the extreme values, right? Either the extreme lower values. So this indicates that here we will be having somehow extreme low values, and below curve indicates that we will be having extreme right values. And when your data is in a symmetric distribution, it indicates that there is no outlier available in your data. That's the main reason why it falls under symmetric distribution. So when we started our discussion, we have talked about the outliers thing. So I hope everyone knows that what is the meaning of outliers. So I hope you understand my point that when we have a symmetric distribution, it means that we don't have any extreme ranges available over the data set. Neither we have extreme lower value, nor we have extreme, I would say, upper value. But if we do have extreme lower value, that brings us left skewed distribution. If we have extreme right value, then it will bring us to the right skewed distribution. Just to give you one simple example, for example, at least in India, you will see the wealth distribution. What is the wealth distribution of India? Right? Almost maximum people, average, I would say, the mean or the average people falls under middle class category, right? And there are very few people who falls under a rich category, upper category, right? At least in India. So this is the kind of a distribution in the right skewed, where in the extreme end, people fall under rich category are very small, and lower and middle category is quite huge, at least in India, right? Now for you all, there is another task. I told you in the symmetric distribution, the value of mean, median, mode all are same. You have to today, after the session will get over, spend some time in order to see the relationship between mean, median, and mode when we talk about left skewed distribution and when we talk about right skewed distribution. Again, a very interesting question, widely asked in interviews. So, what is the relationship between mean, median, and mode when we have a left skewed data and when we have a right skewed data? So, expecting you all to do the research on your own and give me the answer maybe in the next upcoming class whenever we will meet. With this, shall we proceed ahead? Shall we proceed ahead? Till so far, is everything is clear? I hope you're getting a sense of what I'm trying to convey over here. Don't give the answer right away. You can just explore on your own and write it in your notes, right? Perfect. Now there is a very famous empirical rule, which also I just want to convey over here because we are talking about a normal distribution. This specific rule is very widely used in almost all the experiments. And it says that when your data belongs to a normal distribution, right? When your data belongs to a normal distribution, let's assume this is mu. And let's assume that this specific range is mu plus sigma and this is mu minus sigma. So data under this specific portion from mu minus sigma to mu plus sigma, almost 65% of your data falls under this specific range. Okay? Almost 65% of your data, it's 65 or 68. Let me just verify. Empirical rule. Oh, it's 68. I was correct. So 68, 95, 99.7. So almost 68% of data falls under this specific range. Now, when you go beyond, as we have just now seen, under a range from mu minus 2 sigma, I hope everyone knows sigma is what? Standard deviation. And how can we evaluate that? We already have seen in the starting of the class. Almost 95% of data falls under this specific range. And beyond that, from mu minus 3 sigma to mu plus 3 sigma, almost, I would say, 99.7% data, if I'm not wrong, yep, falls under this specific category. So this is another technique, I would say, to detect the outliers. It is being said that any data which falls beyond this specific range, for example, if our data lies beyond mu minus 3 sigma to mu plus 3 sigma, chances are very high that those data points are nothing but the outliers, extreme values in the extreme right or in the extreme left. So this is the empirical rule. Always remember that this will really help you to solve multiple questions in the statistical part. So far, so good. Shall we move further? Shall we move further? So far, so good. Now, let me first of all revise what things we have covered up, because multiple topics we have explored till so far. Or maybe can you guys let me know what is the first topic we have covered up when we started our discussion? Because now it will be the last topic that we will touch upon. So before that, let's revise what topics we have covered up, so that once I will end the session, it's not that everything will be jungled up in your head, right? So when we started our discussion, we have talked about what is stats. Very good. So we have seen that it's a way to summarize our data in a cleared manner. After that, what's next we have covered up? We have talked about the types of statistical part. We have talked about descriptive and inferential. Next, what we have covered up in descriptive stats in our today's class. What we have, yes. So we have talked about the measures of central tendency, which are mean, median, mode, and how can we evaluate them. What's next? What's next? We have talked about measures of dispersion, in which we have talked about range, standard deviation, IQR I have given you as a task. What's next? What's next? We have talked about outliers. What are outliers? With the help of an example in which I have given you one illustration of doing a survey of the people who are earning in Bangalore as a data analyst position, and we have analyzed that the extreme values in that specific part will be the outliers. Then we have talked about one interesting question: out of mean and median, which specific matrix is more robust to outlier? What is the answer and why? Median, right? We have taken one example as well, same illustration, and we have seen that why median is more robust to outliers. After that, what's next? We have shifted our discussion towards inferential stats. We have talked about what is the difference between population versus sample. Population is the huge set of data, and sometimes due to the constraints we cannot work with a complete huge amount of data, so we take the subset of that specific population called as sample data. Now, in a sample data, if I just want to see that whatever be the conclusion I am making, the experiment that I am making, is it correct or not for the huge population, that is where we do the testing. And we have talked about a hypothesis testing. How we do that? For that, null hypothesis is required, alternate hypothesis is required. Then we apply the test, z-test, t-test. There are multiple tests apart from this chi-square, ANOVA, but I have not talked about everything over here. I have just given you a brief illustration of how z-test will be implemented. After that, what's next? After that, what's next? We have talked about probability. What is the basic literal meaning of probability and how can we evaluate that? So with the help of one simple example of tossing a coin 3 times, we have observed that first of all, we have to evaluate the favorable outcome, and then we need to divide that value with the total outcome values that we will be having, and we will be able to get the probability of any given number. Afterwards, what's next we have covered up? We have talked about the probability distribution. So we have talked about two different types of distribution: discrete, continuous. We have seen the difference between these two. Discrete means the outcome will be a whole number. Bernoulli binomial are the examples for the same. Then we talk about continuous, where the outcome is a continuous number. Normal distribution is the very widely used example over there. Then we deep dive into normal distribution. Normal distribution is a bell-shaped curve. We have talked about the properties of that. For example, the value of mean, median, and mode, they are same in the normal distribution. We have seen the other names of normal distribution which are widely used in the world of mathematics: Gaussian, symmetric. Then we have talked about skewed distribution, in which outliers will be there. We have observed that when we talk about normal distribution, there will be no outliers. But when we talk about skewed distribution, outliers will be there. If the outliers are there in the extreme left side, it's a left skewed. Extreme right side, it's a right skewed. Then I have given you another task that just let me know once the session will get over. Do your research. What are the properties of relationship among mean, median, and mode in the left and the right skewed? After that, we have talked about empirical rule, which says that if our data belongs to normal distribution, then from mu minus sigma to mu plus sigma, 68% of the data lies. From mu minus 2 sigma to mu plus 2 sigma, 95% of data lies. And mu minus 3 sigma to mu plus 3 sigma, 99.7% of data lies. And this empirical rule always helps us to understand the outliers part as well. Because usually if a data falls outside the range of mu minus 3 sigma to mu plus 3 sigma, probability is very, very high that it belongs to outliers, right? I have given you another task also, that just examine how the box plot will work and how box plot will be able to detect the outliers as well. A very important topic. Also, I'm not touching upon that today due to time constraint, but please do refer it somewhere. As of now, you can write it somewhere that, hey, I have to revise that specific topic as well at your end, right? Because from the interview perspective and from industry work perspective, that topic is also important. Now, we are going towards the last topic of today's class, and that is about the correlation and regression. Again, a very important topic with respect to the work that we will do on a daily basis. First topic is correlation coefficient. So usually, when you are dealing with the data points in your work, you will be having multiple features available with you, right? You will be having multiple features available with you. Maybe feature F1, feature F2, feature F3, feature F4, and all these features are helping you to get the target value, right? For example, you're working with a problem of diabetes detection. So you have multiple features like whether a patient will be having a high BP or not, whether a patient will be having a high sugar value or not, whether the patient is pregnant or not if she is female, uh, maybe whether that patient will be having a, let's say, a problem of what else? I don't even remember. Acidity or not. I'm just writing some random features. So now it might be the case that we have multiple features available, and there are the two features who are very high correlated. What is the meaning of that? Let's try to understand. When we talk about correlation, either your features are positively correlated or they will be having a value as 0, or they are negatively correlated. Always remember, the correlation coefficient value always falls under the range from -1 to +1. Always remember that. So either it will be a -1, or it will be a +1, or it can be a 0 as well. Now we have to understand that what is the meaning of positive correlation. Positive means that if my feature F1 value is increasing, feature F2 value is also increasing. It means that if one factor is increasing, another one is also increasing. So that is where we are saying that these two are positively correlated. These two are positively correlated. And if, let's say, your features are having a usual value more than 0.85, we say that the two features are highly correlated. And when the two features are highly correlated, we usually recommend to remove any one of them, because indirectly it is showcasing us the similar information to the model. So if the two features are giving the same information, why will we will take both of them? Because if you will be having higher set of features, it require again higher GPU resources to process them. So what we can do is we can take any one of the feature, because we know that these two features are highly correlated. So we can remove any one of them. If your value is 0, it means that the two features are not at all correlated. Means there is no correlation among them. And at that specific point of time, obviously you can take both of the features together. When your features are negatively correlated, for example, you're getting minus of 0.85, it means that when one feature is increasing, another one is decreasing negatively. So again, somehow they are giving us the similar information, but in a negative direction. When one is increasing, another one is decreasing. That's the meaning of negative correlation. I hope it is clear to everyone and its inference. So basically, this correlation coefficient comes into picture whenever you are doing a feature selection, meaning that you will be having a lot of features and you want to select the features. So what you will do, you will try to find out the high correlation coefficient features, and you will try to remove the features which are having a high correlation coefficient value, whether it is in a positive or negative direction. That's the whole idea about correlation coefficient. Give me the confirmation if this is okay or not. Will that be fine? Is this clear? What I'm trying to convey over here? So what usually happens if, let's say, you are saying the feature F1 and feature F2, they are highly correlated. So the meaning is that somehow these two features are providing the similar information for the data analysis. These two features are providing the similar information for the data analysis. Now, when the two features are providing the similar information, so what is the benefit of using both of them? So in that case, we usually prefer to remove any one of them. In that case, you can remove any one of the feature. And that is the main reason why this specific portion of correlation coefficient detection is used as a feature selection technique. That's the whole point I want to convey over here. Now it is clear to everyone? Yes. For that, in the programming world, we usually create a heat map, or we have a function called as dot core, with the help of which, for example, the data that you will be having, if you apply dot core, it will be able to give the correlation coefficient values, and then you can examine that which features are highly correlated. I will share the entire documentation of today's class after the session will get over. Just wait for next 5 minutes. I am about to wrap up. Don't worry. The last important thing is about the regression analysis. What is regression? Regression means that you will be having the multiple dependent variables, right? And independent values. So there are multiple features you have. For example, let's say house price prediction. For that, let's say today I have bought one flat in Bangalore and I want to analyze that after 5 years, what could be the possible price of the flat which I have purchased. Let's say today I have purchased it for 1 CR. After 5 years, what could be the price of that specific flat? So the features could be that maybe I'm saying that that flat, let's say size or the volume of the flat. Second feature could be that locality or the area where my flat resides. Third feature could be maybe whether that flat contains balcony or not, right? Fourth feature could be that which specific floor that specific flat belongs to. There are multiple features. I hope everyone understand this part, which basically uh, helps me to understand the pricing part of the flat. Now, what we want is y, which is equals to m1 f1 plus m2 f2 plus m3 f3 plus m4 f4 plus c. So this f1, f2, f3, f4 are the features. This m1, m2, m3 and m4 are the slope, and c is something which is the intercept. And y is the price of the flat, right? So y is something which is the dependent variable, which depends on the features f1, f2, f3, f4, which are the independent variable. So whenever you will be having multiple independent variables or the features available with you, and you want to find out a single answer which depends on the multiple features that we will be having, that is where you will always go with the regression analysis in stats. Okay? You will try to, it's nothing but is the equation of a straight line. I hope everyone knows this thing. And usually we try to apply the algorithms to best fit this straight line and to find out the most optimal values of m1, m2, m3, m4 and c in our analysis, and that is where we will do the complete training of our model. There is a very famous algorithm called as linear regression. You can again refer the mathematical intuition behind this specific algorithm to understand more about this specific part, right? But this is the overall idea about the regression analysis, which we usually do. So the main difference between correlation coefficient and regression analysis is in regression analysis, we will be having multiple independent features and one dependent variable which wants to predict some outcome. Whereas in correlation coefficient, it's a different story altogether where we want to see the uh, correlation among the two features that we will be having. It can be positive, it can be zero, it can be negative, basically used for the feature selection aspect. I hope it is clear to everyone, right? Now, let me share with you resource which I was talking about. Just give me a second. So if you will go inside the playlist, with respect to whatever topic we have covered up, I can share with you. So there is a playlist for stats for data science. which you can refer for the concepts that I have covered up today. For example, I was talking about the IQR, right? So I have not covered up that in lot more detail. You can refer in this specific video, measures of dispersion, right? And again, normal distribution outlier detection, you can refer this specific video to understand that how the outliers will be detected. I was talking about box plot, you can refer over here. So everything will be available over the specific playlist which you can refer at your end. With respect to the linear regression part, at the very end I have talked about, you can refer the playlist of, I think, machine learning. There you will find the maths of linear regression with the project. You can refer the specific part. So everything is available. You can just refer the videos and you will be able to get the understanding of whatever points are not clear to you, right?